This is Mindset for Success with your host, Dr. Leslie Knudsen. Each week, she will interview women entrepreneurs to explore the unconscious psychological struggles they faced as they build their businesses and how they overcame them. Here's your host, Leslie Knudsen.
I'm so excited to invite my next guest today. Mary Clavieres is the founder of Brief Transitions, the first to market mesh underwear for women after childbirth and surgeries. She leverages her 15 years of manufacturing at a Fortune 100 pharmaceutical company to grow her business. Mary has also founded the Transitions Collective, a platform that provides resources and connection for mom business owners. She specializes in teaching entrepreneurs how to work more effectively in their businesses using the Herrmann Brain Dominance Instrument. Welcome, Mary.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Mary, it takes a lot to be a successful female entrepreneur. And business acumen is key, but we rarely talk about the psychological issues and challenges that women can face to achieve that success. And I refer to those as the negative and sometimes persistent thoughts that create doubt and undermine success and can destroy decision-making, and not to mention just an overall happiness and satisfaction level in life. So I wonder if I could ask you to start telling our listeners a little bit about your entrepreneur journey and what pushed you to become an entrepreneur when you did.
Yes. So I completely agree. There's so much that goes into it, and it's definitely a journey. So mine started, I was still in the corporate world, and I had my first baby. So motherhood had a big impact for me. And after I went through that process and was recovering, I actually came up for the idea for Brief Transitions, which was because I ran out of these mesh underwear that they give you in the hospital, and I didn't have more for my recovery at home. Mm-hmm. So it really made me think about, why don't women have the products that they need postpartum, right? It's a very frustrating place to be in. And that, it just started as something in my mind, just that question, why? Why don't we have this? And I never really intended for it to be a business, certainly not the business to the scale that it is today, and leaving my corporate job for it and everything. But over time, as I explored it and as I created the business, I found my purpose and my alignment shifting to be more in that space. And at the same time, my corporate job got more difficult and less aligned because it required a lot of travel and a lot of other things. So that kind of shift that started with the questions really got me started on this whole other path that I never really imagined.
For sure. I can imagine leaving a successful 15-year corporate job with a steady income may have had some risk for you. And I wonder if you experienced this, and if so, how did you navigate yourself out of feeling this risk?
Definitely. I felt risk. I felt just scared, right? And fear, because I was going, it's kind of like everything I worked for, and I worked up this ladder, and now I'm leaving it to make underwear. It seemed like really, a mindset, because we're taught so much about mindset and what success is, right? So that had a big impact. And honestly, I didn't end up leaving until I really couldn't take it anymore. Kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And it was building up for so long, but in the end, I mean, I just had to. I was feeling the stress. I was feeling, sick from it and the worry and everything else. And I just said, okay, like this is not sustainable anymore for me or my family. And I do have an incredibly supportive husband, which was also a key part, because even when I told him, I think I'm going to leave, I can't really take it anymore. And he basically said, I don't know why you wouldn't leave, because this is not you, you know? So having that support really helped me to make that leap.
So you wouldn't be the first guest to talk about a medical difficulty while trying to make such a big decision or starting a new company. And I wonder, sort of looking backwards, if you can talk a little bit about how come it took to you really struggling with all that you had on your plate, right? That it wasn't until you kind of had some sort of medical, I don't know, setback, awakening, that you were able to sort of say, I need to do something different.
Yeah, it's a bit strange. I'm looking back now, you know, I think it's more that I wasn't paying attention and listening to myself enough. And I just kind of kept adding because, I mean, there's so many layers to it, right? But there's the culture around the achievement, and I think especially for women, you know, doing all these things that we feel like we need to do or we have to do. And it just kind of kept piling up and piling up. And my job, the last position that I had before I left, actually required a significant amount of travel. And at that point, I had 2 young children at home, had my second daughter. And it just kind of, I don't know that there would have been another way around it, but looking back now from what I see about myself now and the boundaries that I have and how it's something I'm always working on, of course, but just what I do now to take care of myself and to give myself time and really listening to myself and my inner voice. A lot of that had just been basically shut down, I think, for so many years. And
shut down because you were doing what you thought was expected of you.
Yeah.
What you should do, I should say.
Right. I think there's a lot of layers to that too, but definitely what I thought I should do and just not in tune with myself.
Or really feeling like you had, as you say, the space to do it. And you really had to step out of the corporate to be able to find space and then start to take care of yourself in a different way while you were setting up your own business.
Right. Yeah. I've done a lot more work on that over the years. I didn't even see it as so significant then as I do now, but it was definitely the start of it.
So starting your own business completely out of a different area in which you were working for 15 years successfully before, during the development of your new business, have you ever experienced a moment and when you felt sort of inadequate or not up to the job of starting this new business? You know, we love to say in the literature, the imposter syndrome, but have you ever experienced that? And if so, what sort of things have you learned to do to overcome that we can share with our listeners?
Yes, I've definitely felt that many times.
And you wouldn't be the only one.
Right. And I actually just hosted, because I run a community for mom business owners, and I just hosted a community and conversation around imposter syndrome last week. So the timing is great, because it's something that comes up with a lot of us. And I mean, for me, yes, I've had imposter syndrome definitely over the years, and it still comes up. If I think about, I mean, for me, it's much easier to talk myself down than to talk myself up. And
can you explain that a little bit, by the way?
Yeah. So like tell myself negative things about myself versus positive things. Yeah. So that, I think, really the more negative, when I find myself speaking to myself in a more negative way, it breeds and it feeds that imposter syndrome even more.
For sure. And are you more aware of it now than you were working in corporate, or it's about the same, or you're just kinder and gentler to you?
I'm definitely more aware of it now. I think it showed up. I know it showed up in corporate too, but I don't think to the extent that it does now that I'm on my own, or that it has over the years that I've been on my own. Because there's a different challenge being out of corporate. Like you feel like so much more is on the line for yourself, right? So it kind of was like a different perspective. Corporate, I mean, it feels like there's always some kind of net there of some sort, safety net or something. I don't know, but for myself, I definitely became more aware of it. But now I also do things to kind of keep it quiet, I guess, in my mind.
So in terms of being able to find ways to keep things quiet, I'm going to say the early grind of the phase of setting up a new business are when things are overwhelming. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't feel overwhelming even after things are set up. What strategies have you developed to help you overcome these difficult, overwhelming times?
Yeah, I love that, because you're right. There is a different grind in the beginning for sure. And I'm grateful that I've been moving out of that phase. For me, I love the 5-minute journal. So it's a journal that has a gratitude practice built in. So every morning I write 3 things that I'm grateful for, 3 things that would make the day great, and positive affirmations to myself. It literally takes 5 minutes. And then at the end of the day, it's a great name.
Good thing.
Yeah. I keep it right next to my bed. And then at the end of the day, there's a space to reflect on 3 things that went well for the day and 1 thing that you might change or do better. And I find that the times that I'm consistent with that, I feel and I see the power throughout my days. So I really make it a point to do that. And it helps me to kind of stay grounded in having a gratitude practice, which I think is really important, because it just gives you a different perspective.
And it's pretty concrete in 5 minutes.
Yes, exactly. Right. So you can't say, I don't have time.
Exactly. For some women, it's hard to ask for what they feel they deserve. Has this ever happened to you? And if so, what can you share was helpful in sort of overcoming that?
Yes, that's definitely happened to me many times.
Another thing.
Right. Not surprising.
Right.
For me, it's really been in really small steps, recognizing it for myself. I tend to, and I think this happens for a lot of women, tend to nurture and always want to help everyone else, which is great. There's nothing wrong with helping people, but it has to be, you still have to have certain things set up for yourself in terms of your own boundaries and your limits. And the more I recognized that and recognized when I was getting frustrated because I didn't have the right boundaries in place, the more it built up also my feeling of worth, if that makes sense.
And do you know why it built up your feelings of worth, the more boundaries you put down, just to kind of walk it out for our listeners?
Definitely. Yeah. So I think there's a few things. I mean, going back to just everything layers on throughout the years, right? Most of the, what I've heard over the years are those things around achievement and praise and, wanting everyone to like you and all of that stuff. To undo that is a process and is a journey on its own. And I think the more that I tried to undo that by setting up those boundaries, the more I felt more confidence in myself. And I heard a friend and a mentor of mine said this recently. She said that your inner world is reflected in your outer world. And I really liked that perspective for what I've been trying to do with my own, self and worth and value. And really it has to start with me valuing myself so that other people, see that the same way.
And also not setting yourself up to be overwhelmed. Not that we can ever not to do that, but certainly the more you carve out space and ways not to take on more than maybe what's comfortable, then you set your boundaries, you do a better job for yourself, but also for those around you.
Yes. I used to always bend over backwards. Like someone asked me something and it's like, how can I fit it in? Where can I put it in my schedule? Oh, this is the time you're free. Okay, I will do that. No problem. And now I'm much more, comfortable saying no or really stopping to think about it before I react so that I can make sure it's aligned for myself.
Right. And whether you're making room on your schedule or concerned about payment, I mean, that's
Yep.
all sort of in the same mailbox, right?
Definitely.